Really. Hi, everybody.
This is
Good to see everybody.
amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Hi. These
Sam, you
are my
throw a
lovely.
great party here.
These are my lovely people.
Yeah, I can see.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you, and I'm so pleased you're well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm doing great.
Good, good, good. So,
Yeah.
everybody, this is my wonderful teacher and just a wonderful all-round human, Dr. Dicken Bettinger. He has been, I think you were with Sid for over 20 years.
Yeah, about 23 years I
Yeah.
studied with him.
Yeah, you have your own practice, Three Principles Mentoring. You're on the board of 3PGC,
Yeah.
and you have been teaching the principles for many, many years. And yeah, I'm one of my favourite teachers in the world. I'm so excited to be sharing some space and some time with you, because normally around this time of year you'd be near to coming over and I'd be getting to see you. And obviously during this time that's not possible. So thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting to me how fun it is to connect with people this way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
worked out really well.
yeah. It's we're all finding different ways. So yeah, I think it has as well. It's a new world, so we're having to find new ways of doing things. But I'd love you to say a little bit about you. So you know your time with Sid, and I've got some questions. But if you want to just start us off and kind of look towards what you're seeing, I suppose my question really is because is it okay to share that you've recently been unwell with
Yeah, yeah.
COVID? Yeah, so Dickon was one of the first people, and his wife I know that actually contracted COVID-19, and obviously it's very worrying from afar, but they've both fully recovered, and I guess it was for you to speak at first about yourself, about what you've seen, what looks different since that experience, because I would imagine that you know what looks less important, what looks more important. So that's kind of over to you to start off with, if you would.
Um, I have 4 grandkids that I am so in love with. I can't stand it. Thank God for FaceTime. Boy, every day hanging out with my grandkids, watching what they're up to. Uh, I wish you all could meet my wife, Kwesi. We've been married 50 years. I always read about relationships that they go through stages. There's the honeymoon stage, and then the disillusionment stage where things get real. And then there's the struggle, and then there's the compromise, and then hopefully there's a deeper acceptance. Those aren't stages, those are just thought created states of mind. And the principles have just helped me live in the honeymoon a huge part of the time. And I love that, how hopeful that is for relationships, the possibility of that. What else? I live in the Pacific Northwest. I look out my window here and there's huge tall pine trees and the ocean and islands and mountains. And it's spring here and it's flowers, and that's part of me, part of my world. The principles have helped me. You know what I love about Sid used to say, it's a journey of love. It starts in love and it ends in pure love. He says it's a different kind of love, though. It's not ego's love where it comes and goes, or where it's selective and saying, well, I love this person, not that person, this tree, not that tree. That's ego love. It's a love that's for the whole world. It's unconditional. It's one of the best things I've ever learned, ever, is that when I become aware of how much of my thinking shuts out the world, it shut out my wife, it shut out my kids. When I'm in my thinking for long periods of time, they disappear. They're not even there. My kids used to call me Space Cadet because I was always in my head. And I'm thinking I'm a responsible adult. And if you don't think about everything in your life, you're not being responsible, nothing will get done, and you won't be able to make decisions. So the more education I got, the more of a head case I became. I can still be a head case, but fortunately, it's something I visit rather than live in. I can remember one day coming home from work, and I was so consumed by my personal thinking. My wife came up and knocked on my forehead playfully. She's very lighthearted and playful. She knocked on my forehead and she said, "Hello, is anybody home? Are you going to come out tonight and play with us, or are you going to stay in there all night?" And I would try to get present, but there was so much I needed to think about that I couldn't stop thinking. And the paradox is, if we stay in our thinking for long periods of time, the feeling of what we're thinking about becomes our world. So one of the first things that happened when I met Sid Banks was he helped me become more aware of the difference between when I was living my life in the present, in the now, and when I was thinking about my life. And that when I'm thinking about my life, I won't find the things I'm looking for. All of my psychological suffering happens not while I'm present. There is no suffering in the present. No matter what you're experiencing, you're like a baby. You're just experiencing without story. So that was the first thing when I met Sid. He just kept saying, "You're thinking up your life in a way that the feeling you think has to do with life, but it doesn't. It has to do with the story you're making up in your head." When we drop out of the story we're thinking of, we stop creating this movie in our head that we think is real. It's just a movie or a bad dream. We fall out of that, and only in the now can we find what we're looking for. Peace of mind, enjoyment of our senses, feeling of being connected to people. This was my secret of the honeymoon. If I didn't like my wife, I used to think it had to do with her. And then after I thought I was becoming really undone, I say, no, it has to do with our relationship. So when I don't feel close to her, we got to talk about this and work it out. And so I'd bring my low mood to her, and we'd be endlessly talking about our relationship and a bad feeling. And guess what? It didn't work out very well. And then I meet Sid, and all of a sudden I go, if I don't feel close to my wife, it has nothing to do with her or my relationship. It has everything to do with the story I'm thinking up in my head. But for that story, when any of us are free of that story, we're just an awake, aware presence, or some people would call the heart. We go from our head to our heart. I'd say to my wife, I'm back. And instead of bringing my struggles and my upset and my worries and my judgments, I started dropping in to this space free of thought that's filled with connection. And I'd bring that feeling to her, and our relationship got better and better. I started doing that with my kids. When I learned this, my daughter was 13 going on 14, and she was feisty and rebellious and independent, and I loved her for it. But boy, when I would get into my thinking, the two of us could really butt heads. And all of a sudden I said, I only have one job in life, one job. Be aware of when I'm in story that burdens me. It's my thinking. If I become aware of that, I don't need anybody to teach me how to let go of it. It's like putting your hand on a hot stove. Once I realize that the pain is coming from having my hand on the stove, I don't need lessons. I don't need a teacher. I don't need the 7 steps to taking your hand off the stove. I don't need a seminar. Wisdom brings my hand off. If I realize that what I'm thinking is causing my stress, worry, upset, if I really see that, it'll bring me right back to the now. Why would I hold on to thinking that's burdening me? Why would I keep holding my hand on the stove if that's what's creating my pain? It's not my wife creating my pain. Oh, is she happy when I learn these principles? I stopped blaming her for being annoyed with her. It's like, oh, Koiz, you wouldn't believe the movie I'm creating in my head right now that's creating annoyance. Has nothing to do with you and our relationship. Hold on a minute, I'll be right there. Fall out of that thinking, come back to the now where I have no story and I don't know anything about life or relationships. I'm in the unknown, and that's where the only place love reveals itself, where knowing how to deal with difficulties and challenges reveals itself. It's not relying upon the intellect. You just know what to do. So the one thing that I started with Sid was, if I become a little bit more aware of the difference between when I'm fully present in life, no story, no thinking, feels good, just being myself, and when I'm thinking about my life, I'll begin to understand how thinking about my life is where my tension, stress, and upset come from. Nowhere else. Nowhere else. So for years, that's what helped me. I'd see myself thinking up tension, stress, and upset, worry. Boy, was I a worrier. And if I really saw it, I just let go temporarily, even for a moment, of everything I was thinking and just come back to the now. And I started finding the now is a beautiful place to rest and to be and to hang out. Way more fun than being up here, uptight, in a painful story that's not even true. It's just made up. So I started enjoying, Sid called the now pure consciousness. It's awareness free of the contamination of our personal thinking, our concepts, our ideas, our stories. He says it's what everybody in the world's looking for. Why? Because when we're aware without story, we're like babies again, completely free to have any feeling, any experience, without making up all kinds of garbage about it and what it means and what we have to do about it and try and fix it and change it and get rid of it. We can just be ourselves. In the now, all kinds of thoughts and feelings flow through us, but it always feels good. So Sid would say, when you're in the now, there's a feeling. It's very different than when you're in your thinking. It's a different feeling. You don't even have to label it. It's just a nice feeling, the feeling of being. It says, you find that feeling and then bring that feeling to other people. So very early on saying, this would completely change my parenting if instead of thinking about what my kids were doing I didn't like and getting more and more upset, what would happen if I had one job? Be aware of when I leave the now, come back to it, find the feeling of the now, and then go find my kids and bring that feeling consistently. What would happen? I go, holy geez, I can be a good parent even though I was parented by an alcoholic and it was not very fun and it wasn't about bringing good feeling to each other. That rarely happened. And I said, it doesn't make any difference how I was raised or what my past was like. Makes no difference. Oh my God. If I wake up into the now, there's enough good feeling in the now that I can bring that to other people and I can be a good parent. I can be a good husband. It changed my relationship with my friends, with my clients at work. I have one job. So Sid always made it simple. He'd say, it's all thought. Wake up out of thinking that weighs on you. Rest in the now. There's a good feeling there. Give it away. That's the essence of all true spiritual and psychological teachings. We already have what we're looking for. It's inside of us. It gets covered over by our thinking. When the thinking falls away, it's still right there. It's always been right there. The feeling of being. If you keep that feeling to yourself, it's ego. If you give it away unconditionally and free, you're being of service to the world. So I stopped trying to get my kids to change, and I stopped trying to get my wife to be more like me, doing 4 hours of meditation a day and reading every book I read and doing all the practices I did, the affirmations and the dream work. I stopped trying to get her to be different because I had one job. Be aware of thought, come home to presence. There's a feeling already there. When you feel it, give it away for free. Bring it. That's it. My life got simple and better and better. And within 6 months of doing that and not trying to change my kids one bit, just bringing feeling to them, being particular about the feeling I brought to them, which wasn't a feeling my parents brought to me and which wasn't the feeling I was bringing to my kids. I'd look for what my kids were doing that wasn't right. I'd start feeling annoyed, bothered, and upset, and then I'd say something to them, and that was parenting. I'd look at my relationship with my wife, and when I got upset, I felt like, well, now I got to bring this to her and talk about this and work it out. If I don't, I believed all this stuff that people said, relationships is a lot of hard work and you got to keep working on it. Well, if you bring negativity to people regularly, it is a lot of hard work. Oh my God, there's no end to it. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Innocently. So within 6 months, my kids were different people. My wife and I suddenly felt like we were on honeymoon again. My kids started saying, Dad, you're different. What are you smoking, dude? What are you into? And they, for the first time, got interested in hearing about what I was learning that was helping me be more present and more loving, because that's what we all want. I don't know anybody who doesn't want that. No matter how troubled, and I've worked with people that are as troubled as they come, sent to me out of prison, sent to me who've lived their whole lives in mental institutions, people who've grown up with years and years of horrific abuse. And I keep hearing Sid's words in the background. Every single human being, whether they know it or not, have perfect well-being at their core. Perfect. But for our thinking that covers it over. So when we wake up to the fact of thought and see how our thinking creates our feeling burden, there's a natural tendency to let go of that thinking. You can't learn that from anybody. No one can tell you how to do that. No one can tell you how to take your hand off the hot stove other than take it off. You say, but how? Well, you're not seeing that your hand being there is causing pain, because if you did, there is no how. It's just wisdom knows how. Sid would say, if you really see thought, it's not my wife making me annoyed or bothered. It's not situations. It's not my kids. I'm thinking up this feeling of life. If you really see that, it's natural tendency to let go of what's creating pain. Doesn't that make sense? As I say, put your hand out. If I put something in it that's too sharp or too hot or too cold, you don't ask for a seminar. You don't ask for advice. You don't look outside of yourself for solutions. You just let it go. That's the simplicity of Sid's teaching. I had never met anybody in spiritual or psychological circles who says there's no technique. If you understand the nature of thought, you'll be letting go of thought all during the day. And less thinking, more presence. More presence, more feeling. More feeling, more opportunity to bring that into the world and give it away. I worked with a woman who was suicidally depressed. She said, I'll come see you because my mom thinks I should do this, but I'm telling you, I've been through so much therapy and I've done so many drugs. If this doesn't work, I'm killing myself. How about that for an introduction? I'll come see you. If I don't feel better when I leave you, I'm killing myself. I said, okay, come on. Because it's not me that's going to change her. I can just point her toward what's true. And truth sets people free, not me. I say, you're a thinker. You're no different than me. And you're living in the world of your thought stories, just like the rest of us. And that's where our pain and suffering comes from. Because when we drop those stories, the now is like, what's here in the now? I could be thinking horrible things right now and dredging up all kinds of painful memory. And I'm sitting here in my living room, looking out at this beautiful day. Is there anything in the trees that are demanding me to be miserable? Right? You'll begin to find out that there's a freedom that can only be found in the now. You can't think your way to it. So Sid would say, look for the quiet under the noise of your thinking. Look for the space behind your thinking. Look for awareness where you're not listening to anything you're thinking, where you're just present. Because that's where you'll find everything you're looking for. And isn't it paradoxical that most adults, when they feel like they have an issue or problem, they feel stressed, they feel upset, they don't run full speed toward this wide open state of presence where we find always feelings that uplift and thinking that's creatively responsive. And that's why teachers have made such a fuss about the now. But without understanding thought, see, I knew about the now and I knew about wisdom long before I found Sid Banks. But I still thought my kids drove me crazy. I still thought my wife annoyed me. I still thought the weather bummed me out. And I said, yeah, but the world makes me feel horrible, but I'll find the now. And so I would work on it and I would use techniques and practices. When I started seeing thought, I didn't need a teacher. I began to let go of thoughts that created my worry that I lived in a good part of my life. And I started discovering the enjoyment of the now, how peaceful I would feel. Not at first. At first, it was really hard, but more and more, it got familiar. It got more familiar. Why would I hold on to this when there's this? And then when there's this, I don't know anything, but it seems like I feel better and I do better. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful thing. How wonderful we're created this way. I can go anywhere in the world. Say, let me tell you a real secret. We all have perfect well-being inside, but it gets covered over by our thinking. So if you start to realize that thought creates your feelings, you're going to be letting go of, why would I be thinking about this if it bums me out, if it stresses me, if it anxieties me, right? If it angers me. And we start letting go of lots and lots and lots of our thinking that weighs on us. And then we discover the beauty of the now, which is free of thought. Thoughts can come and go, but we're not paying attention to them. Just present, resting in the now. In my book, I called it coming home. Why is that? When people are resting in the now is when they feel most themselves, most comfortable, most alive. We're like kids again. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it newborn consciousness. You're like a baby. Okay, I'm going to give one last little story and then we'll open it up because I want to talk to you guys. I had the virus, 2.5 weeks of physical pain like I have never experienced, chronic headache, chronic fever, chronic headache, body aches that were horrible. Very, very fortunate. In some ways, I had a mild case because it didn't go into my lungs, so it was never life-threatening. But I've never, ever felt so sick. And 2 other things made it even worse. Complete mental fog. I couldn't think about anything. Couldn't read. I tell you, I love reading. I couldn't read. I couldn't think very clearly. It was like just foggy. Fever, fog, headache. I couldn't relax into a nice feeling for the first time in 40 years. Couldn't. I just was in pain 24/7. And I had zero energy, complete fatigue. I've never felt that. I've had horrible flus, high fevers. I had energy. I could get up and go to the bathroom and walk around, and I couldn't do that. I could not. I'd have to go to the bathroom. I go, oh no. I'd take 10 steps to the bathroom, come back, and I'd have to take a nap. I slept 10 hours at night. I slept 4 to 6 hours during the day. And the rest of the time I was just experiencing pain. Later, in retrospect, I realized something was very different between how I went through this and how I used to go through being sick. My wife used to say, when you're sick, you are such a baby. You have the man flu. You are constantly thinking about it and complaining. Oh, Kwesi, I feel so bad. Oh, God, I have the worst headache. Oh, I can't believe it. And now this is not being in the now. That's being in my thinking about life. Psychological suffering comes from thinking about life. It doesn't come from the now. There's pain in the now. There's all kinds of feelings in the now, but there isn't psychological suffering. This is torture. Oh, I can't stand this. How long is this going to go on? I used to be, every time I had physical problems, I thought that way. This time I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't have any story. I was just feeling it. And on the morning of day 18, I woke up and I stood up on a bed and I went, oh my God, my body feels so different. And then I realized I have no pain. I have no headache. I have no aches. I have no symptoms. And then I realized I have all kinds of energy. I went running through the house, said, Kwesi, I'm back. And it was completely gone overnight. It was like I never had it. Now, because I didn't have much thinking about it for 2.5 weeks, and because I wasn't living in story, for the next 4 days, I experienced something I'd never experienced before. I didn't have personal thinking or an inner voice for 4 days. I was literally like newly born. I was experiencing so deeply what Sid talked about, pure thought, pure consciousness, pure mind, not being distracted or influenced by our personal thinking. And it was the most unbelievable 4 days I've ever spent. So I get dressed and I say, Kwesi, I'm going for a walk. And I used to go 10 steps and need a nap. So I said, I'll be back soon. I walked a quarter of a mile. I went down to our beach. I stood there with tears in my eyes. It's unbelievable what life is like when we're not holding a single thought in mind. What happens is we come to our senses. The colors move me. The way the wind blew, the way it felt on my skin was exquisitely delightful. Remember how I said, Sid says, a different kind of love? You fall beyond the influence of our ego, our intellect, our conceptual world, and it's a beautiful world. Our senses are wide awake and alive, even if we're experiencing pain. They're awake and alive. And without story, there's a deeper sense of peace, no matter what you're experiencing. Deeper sense of presence, of aliveness, the feeling. Sid kept saying, quiet your mind and look for a feeling. Quiet and a feeling is the only way we discover what's true, our true self. Look there. Stop looking at the world and thinking about it. Drop into the now. Let go of everything you're thinking and see what you discover. Don't take my word for it. You see what you discover. You see what life is like from there. The light on the ocean brought tears to my eyes. I walked past a marsh and the birds singing. It was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. And on day 5, my old friend came back. That little Dicken talk, self-talk, they call it in psychology. And all of a sudden, instead of being in life, I'm thinking about my life more and more. But you know what? Things had changed. Things had changed. I wasn't so interested in hearing that thinking. It's sort of like talk to my hand. I'm busy here now, enjoying life in the now in my senses. I'm enjoying bringing this feeling of delight into the world, to my wife. Call up my kids and share with them this feeling. Talk to my grandkids and just share with them this feeling. The words aren't important. That's what I learned about parenting. When I'm in this feeling, go find one of my kids and just open your mouth. Don't worry about what you're going to say or how you're going to say it. It's the feeling. Wisdom is found in the feeling. Adversity for ego, adversity is something more to complain about and have story about and to share those stories with others. Oh, it's so horrible. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to make that bad or wrong. It's just there's another world. That's the world of ego, the world of the intellect. Dissatisfaction, complaint, wanting more and better, feeling like you don't have it, feeling like it's going to take time to get it. That's the world of concepts of ego. We drop out of that world, there's another world that doesn't have to do with time and wanting and a better, getting better in the future. Because there is no future, there is no past. There's just now, which is not in time. And it's where we find everything we're looking for. Unconditional peace, joy, love, presence, aliveness, spontaneity, creativity. I could go on and on. Insight, inspiration, motivation, aspiration, clarity, perspective, common sense, solutions to problems. As Sid would say, this space is the ultimate answer. It's where we find everything we're looking for. And people are looking for it in the world and thinking about their relationships and their life and their problems and their issues. And that story keeps us in this feeling innocently. And when you begin to become aware of how our thinking creates that, not the world, not our problems, not our issues, not our relationships, we begin to take our hand off that thinking and drop into the now. And there's presence and a feeling. And now we have something to offer the world. So that's my story, and I'm not sticking to it because it keeps changing. And I'd love to hear what people are hearing. Is this making sense? Is there something that jumped out at you? Does it invoke a question? Love to hear.
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself, or you can put it in chat, or you can raise hand. So I encourage you to do that while we've got Dicken here. And I just love the totality of that experience and the totality of this understanding as well. It's how you share it and the feeling that you evoke through your sharing, and how it just touches all of life and all of our lives if we just are available to it, if we just notice. And yeah, just thank you so much. That was really beautiful. But yeah, if anyone has a question, or something that they've noticed or something that they've seen lately. I'd love you to talk.
Can I, Sam?
Hi, darling.
Hello. Hi, Dicken.
Leanne, it's so good to see you.
How
Wow.
are you?
There's a bunch of people here I've been dying to say hello to, and you're one of them. So thanks
I
for
can sit
coming
up
on.
now. My cat was laying on me. Oh, all right. I loved hearing your story about the now. I've been feeling it quite a lot since we've been going into lockdown. And the past couple of days, I haven't. And like my mind the mind's got, you know, the Leanne chatter has come up more. And I've just realised that you can't think yourself back to the now.
Impossible.
No. The past couple of days I've been, you know, oh, come on, Leanne, you know, and where's the now gone? It's like it's disappeared. Yeah, and I've just realised that you just got to get quiet, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we think about our thinking or our feeling or our life, Sid used to say that's ego fighting ego, and there's no winners. Right? Well-being has nothing to do with thinking our way to well-being. We can't do that. No one can. No one can. Right? It's really interesting to me. Sid used to say, we can spend enormous amounts of time in our personal stories and thinking about life as opposed to living life. But we're a thought away from living life. We're a thought away from the now. We're a thought away from our well-being, from presence. Ego can't believe that if you let go of your intellect, that you're going to find anything of value. So it'll keep talking louder and louder and be more insistent. Here, think about this. Think about this. Oh, think about this. If you don't think about this, nothing will happen. You won't be able to, and blah, 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 blah. All right? But that's understandable because the intellect is a computer, and the computer can't know about life outside the computer. Can't know peace, joy, love, connection, creativity, boundless creativity, awareness. We wouldn't look for those things in our laptop. You'll get information, you get entertainment, you can Google all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, the computer is a great tool when we use it wisely, but if we start using it and the thinking we're doing creates tension, stress, or upset, that's no longer using the computer wisely. So like we tell the kids, close your laptop. It's time. You've had enough screen time, right? Before I came across the principles, I was doing 90% screen time and then trying to be a loving husband and father at the same time.
Yeah.
If any of you have teenagers, you'll know what it's like if you have one that's addicted to video games or the screen, and you're always trying to say, yeah, but we used to have fun together. We used to laugh. We used to play. Get off your computer. No. And we all innocently do that. We get addicted to our stories and they seem real, and pretty soon we don't realize I'm living in a thought-created illusion. We start thinking, no, this is life. All right, I feel so excited playing these games. That's life. So we close the laptop. Our feelings let us know when it's time to get off screen time. But it's counterintuitive at first for most of us, because you let go of everything you think you know and you go into where you don't know anything. You don't know what to say to your spouse. You don't know how to make your life better. You don't know how to deal with your kids. But the paradox is it's in the unknown that we find peace. We find presence. We get thinking that pops into our mind to help us. So sometimes Sid would talk about the difference between the thinking we do and when we're not doing it. Thought keeps coming, but it pops in now. And it's thoughts that pop in that create positive feelings. It's thought that pops in that's creativity. Thought that pops in that brings new and fresh. So he'd say, let go of the old. It's the only way you can find the new and fresh. It's the only way. So Leanne, that's great. If you realize that you can't think your way to the now, to presence, to being open and receptive to an unconditional love and wisdom. Boy, that's beautiful. That's powerful to realize that. And then you just let go, and then here you are, present, which is the only place we can begin to enjoy life again. It's the only place.
Yeah.
It's the only place. So it becomes more inviting. It is filled with benefit.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So nice to see your little face. Love you.
Hi, Dicken.
Stephen, oh my gosh. You look like you're in the witness protection program, but it's good to see you anyways.
I'm not sure quite how to take that. I'm so thrilled seeing you. You look amazing. You look really
Oh,
healthy.
thank you. Yeah, thanks. I feel 125%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to just to say thank you for sharing so beautifully love in such a way full of love. And no one shares love, speaks of love quite like you do. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, everybody, as you hear the principles, you hear different things. And for me, hope came. I always wanted to be a loving parent and a loving husband. And so when I heard the principles, that's all I heard was the only thing in the way of love is our thinking. When we fall out of our thinking, there's feeling that's different kind of love than we think. It's not always this beautiful thing, but it's feeling that opens. So anger that opens is love. All the feelings we have are love in disguise. It's just energy. When we don't hold that energy by concepts, whatever we're feeling starts to open up. So anger opens, hurt opens, and I don't have to wait for love. That is love. How do I know that? Because when my hurt and anger and upset opens, I can be kind to people. So it's a different kind of love, isn't it? When I'm caught up in my thinking, I'm not so kind, right? I think I have to be in a good feeling. You don't. You have to be in the now. In the now, kindness comes naturally to people. Kindness comes naturally. So I got very excited about if I understand thought, it'll help me to be a more engaged lover of life. That's all I ever wanted. So that's what's most important to me. Every question I ask Sid Banks, I think I asked him 100 times, can you say more about love, Sid? What's love? When I thought it was a positive feeling, at first he'd say, well, Dicken, when your mind gets quiet, it's a feeling. It's always there. And then my ego would look for good feeling and try to hold on to good feeling and say, oh, this is love. And so then I'd ask Sid, so what's love? And he'd know I was searching and holding good, right? That's not the now, that's ego, right? Holding is ego. letting go is wisdom. So then Sid would say, Dicken, it's not a feeling. It's the unknown. It's not a feeling. Forget the feeling. Because he could see my ego was so excited. I was searching for the right feeling to hold on to and say, no, I got it. Look, this is love. Right? Love was not at all what I thought it was, at all. The only way I discovered love was when I let go of everything I was thinking. What was left was love in all its different forms and shapes. They're just metaphors. There are spiritual traditions where they say, instead of saying mind and universal mind and divine mind, they call it the heart, but they say it's not the physical heart. It's not the physical heart. It's the heart of the universe. It's the source of all life. It pumps life into the universe. It's our very nature. So everything is created out of love, is love, as love. It's only our concepts and ideas that says that's not true. I'm unlovable, I'm not love. You let go of all of that and you'll discover you are kindness in disguise. That's what the Dalai Lama says. There's only one religion in the world, and it's kindness. And kindness transcends all cultures, all beliefs, all religions, because people enjoy living in kindness. It's a beautiful place to live. So you can feel horrible. Listen, I don't want to make this sound too rosy. I have low moods. I get upset. I get caught up in my stories. They seem real. I'm grumpy or I'm miserable. But so what? That happens. I'm just thrilled that I can at some point wake up out of that and I know where home is. And I know that when I touch home,
What do you mean by that?
Because I was next to you, and talking about me.
wisdom will lighten my feeling. It'll open. My hurt opens. So I can be with family or friends who are dying and I'm crying, but the feeling is opening and it's beautiful. It's sacred. And the nurse comes in and sees me crying, goes, what's the matter? What's wrong? Because we're so used to seeing you're caught in a painful story. What's wrong? You okay? Can I help you? When we're not, we're like little kids again. We have all kinds of feelings. I laugh, I cry, I have all the same feelings I used to have before I learned this. But more and more I'm either in a feeling in a story or I'm in a feeling and not in the story. When I'm in a feeling in a story, it contracts. So you can say ego is a contraction. When I'm not in a story, what I'm feeling starts to open up. Why? It's just pure energy. Pure energy. That's why light has been used as a metaphor for our true nature. You light a match, the energy released from that is boundless. That light will shine to another planet. And if you have an instrument, you'll see it coming to you. You release the bounds of energy, and its nature is to expand. So that's why some people say our true nature is love, and ego is just a contraction of that same love. Now they're just metaphors. I'm just talking. I just happen to like the metaphor of love because I love being in love with life and people. And I love learning. That's the only reason I wanted to learn about the principles. If they didn't help me become more loving, I would have thrown them away and found something else. But it did, and it has, and it continues to. So, thanks, Stephen. Good to see you.
thank you, Dicken. Really, really beautiful to see you. And
Hello from me.
It's good to see you back there too. It's pretty dark, but I can vaguely make you out back there. Yeah, it's good to see you.
time is here as well. So, yeah, thanks, Dicken.
Yeah, it's been
Much
beautiful
love to
listening
you. And
Oh, you're welcome. Love to you too. It's so great to see you.
it's a real joy being in your presence. You stay well, my friend. Much love to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dicken. And I think it's so wonderful for people to listen to you, that someone that's been in the understanding for such a long time, and to hear that there's always more to see. We're always going to get caught, and life is just happening, and we come in and out of this presence, these moments of being at one, and these moments of being caught up, and that never changes. But there's always the availability of
A while back, I got caught up in my story for several days in a row. But the difference was I didn't give myself as hard a time as I used to. I'm going, while that happens, thank God I know where home is, and at some point I'll come home. And when I come home, new light, new life, new love. And if you're caught up and know you're caught up in a story, you're less inclined to act it out. And that's loving. My kids used to know when I was really pissed, really upset. And after a while, they started seeing, because I had this understanding, if you know you're crazy, you're sane, and you don't tend to act on it. If you believe your story and think it's true, you act on it. So if you know you're caught up, it doesn't matter if you're caught up. If you know you're caught up, you're sane. And if you don't act on it, that's so loving. Honestly, my kids would say, Dad, we liked how you were really nice to us when you were in a good feeling, but boy, you just didn't do what you used to do when you weren't in a good feeling. That's love. It's another way of talking about it, is understanding and love go hand in hand. That's the same thing.
You are a wonderful embodiment of this understanding. To me, you've taught me so much. And
Well, thanks. It's great being here with you guys. You throw a heck of a party, Sam. Thanks for inviting me.
you're welcome. And there was a quote I heard the other day, and it just reminded me of you. And it's, one word frees us all. One word frees us all from the weight and pain of life, and that word is love. I just thought, yeah, that's Dicken. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'd like you to, if you can, we have Claire on here, and it's Claire Ashton's birthday, and I know I'd love to get a happy birthday from you.
Yeah, happy birthday, Claire. Wow, awesome.
Claire, you're unmuted.
I didn't know I was being invited to a birthday party. I knew it was a party, but this is special. Claire, this is great. Have you had a good day?
I've had such a nice day. It's been lovely. My husband wrote me a poem this morning.
Oh.
Sent me off on a treasure hunt, but the treasure was my family. So it was really
so true. So true.
Yeah, he's outdone himself, really.
You have kids then?
I have two boys. So I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, so it's quite nice.
I love that age. Oh my gosh.
They're mental.
Yeah, wild.
They are wild.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
They are wild.
Yeah.
It's been a really nice day, and what a good end to it.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Oh, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Dick. And I'm going to unmute everybody to say goodbye. And just, yeah, thank you for this gift of time that you've spent with us. And I'm so pleased that you're well. And I really hope to see you and Koizi soon.
Oh, thanks. Sam, it's great being with you.
It's great, always great.
Hi, everybody.
Bye, Dicken.
Bye, Dicken.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dicken.
Great to see you.
Bye,
Thank
Dicken. Much
you.
love to you.
Bye. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
Bye.
Take
Amazing.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Mum.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy birthday, Claire.
Thank you. I was going to say,
Happy birthday.